There's some feedback in the book, a testimonial from one teacher who said their parent was complaining that they couldn't stop their kid from playing. Why don't we actually just record something that explains why are we doing this? What are we passionate about? What's this studio about? And let them watch it in that first lesson so we know that they've got it. The idea is that we would give teachers these ideas that they could pull out of their back pocket when students come into lessons upset, whatever else you might do. It's like, oh no, I've got the solution to this. Let's do this activity.
Tim Topham, welcome to the program. Appreciate you being on here.
David, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Great to connect.
Absolutely. So you're the founder and director of Top Music Co. It's a major resource platform for music teachers, especially piano teachers, but combining pedagogy, business marketing, and tech and creativity and all that. You're an author, No Book Beginners. So this book advocates an approach for beginner piano students that delays traditional reading notation in favor of sound before symbol. So really focusing on that creativity in the ear training. You're an international speaker. So you've spoken in the US, UK, Australia, and you're really focusing on modernizing instrumental music teaching. I'm just focusing on, again, the creative aspect and the student-centered aspect of teaching, which I think is awesome. And I can totally relate to this just throughout my career as well. But you also have a program for music educators called Top Music Pro. It's a membership that music teachers can be a part of. So you are super active, man. You're everywhere. Like when I started searching you online, I'm like, man, you're getting after it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. There's only one other Tim Topham that comes up in Google, and he's also in Australia, but he works in mining and runs a drill company called Top Drill. So there's me working top music, and he does top drilling. There you go.
So you guys both kind of have the same idea, yeah, with the naming. Yeah, that's right. Great. So I love how you've really focused on this educational piece and sort of like looking at education from a different perspective. But what would you say are some of the misconceptions that maybe music teachers or educators have, when they're going into becoming a teacher, that they're sort of carrying into that career?
I think the biggest misconception is that we have to, or we should teach how we've always taught and how we were taught, because that's kind of the easiest way to do it. And to be honest, so many of us come to music teaching without any formal qualification, which, by the way, I think is totally fine. But one downside of that is that we will just revert to how we were taught. And often a lot of those strategies are well out of date now. And, research has moved on, tech has moved on, kids have moved on, families are different. Everything has shifted, particularly in definitely 5 years, but certainly the last 10 years and 15 years, everything is different. And so we'll have some teachers coming to us who may have been teaching 20 to 30 years, and they're just throwing up their hands going, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing what I used to do. And I used to have a full studio and a wait list, and now people are dropping off and I don't know what's going on. So there has been a real shift, and that's where I really love trying to help teachers understand, here's what's going on. Here's what you can do to hopefully fix that.
Well, so that's so interesting because, you're talking about so teachers, in our industry is pretty old, right? Like it's kind of old fashioned what we do as music teachers.
About 200 years old for piano teachers in particular.
Yeah. I mean, it's an old profession, right? And so, I mean, it makes sense that we want to pivot with the times but what are some of these things that you're talking about? People needing to update their strategies and their approach to teaching.
Yeah, I think when a lot of us went through our own lessons, it was quite normal, and this was happening in schools as well. It was quite normal just to be directed. This is the curriculum. This is what you will learn. You will sit there and learn it, and I am the oracle. I'm the wise person who knows it all, and I will fill your bucket with my knowledge, and you will sit there and enjoy it or not. and that was kind of how it was. It was actually my teacher was a little bit different, which probably explains why I am like I am. But a lot of teaching, that was how it went. Here's the method book that I use for every student. Here are the pieces that I teach. every student. And I can tell you, I can predict with 100% certainty that every student's going to miss that F sharp in the first bar of this piece because I've taught it 300 times. That was kind of the way it worked. And it did work 20 years ago. I don't know how effective it was, but, you know, kids weren't sort of dropping off like they are now when that approach is delivered to them. Now students, because of the way technology has infiltrated their lives, and just because of the different types of kids that are around these days, how family dynamics work, all that kind of stuff, students want a say in what they do. They want autonomy, they want choice, and they want to feel like they're having success with their own goals as much as a teacher's having success with their goals. And so this is a fine line we have to walk as good teachers. So a good teacher these days won't just follow every whim of a student and teach them everything that they want to learn, because they're going to miss out. They're going to be missing out on lots of technique or a variety of genres and experiences of different styles, etc. We're also not going to be directing every single step of the way, because a kid will just eventually go, I don't like this, so I'm going to quit. So we have to walk this fine line now, which is to say we've got to help a student with some of their goals, and we've got to kind of align it with our goals, and we've got to kind of match these two things up. And we kind of talk about this as being a student-centered curriculum versus a teacher-centered curriculum, or a more shared curriculum approach. And I think while that's challenging, it's very doable. And we know from research, self-determination theory tells us that autonomy, self-choice in learning deepens motivation. So students will be more motivated when they do have some say in what they do. And it also changes depending on their age. You know, a 6-year-old, we're going to be directing most of what they do, and that's fine. A 60-year-old, it's going to be the other way, mainly student-led. And in the middle, we've got any variation along that continuum.
How much of that is affected by, you know, kids, you know, this sort of barrage of technology and you know, I don't know what the data is on this, but like the attention span of kids, or even adults for that matter, is so much shorter than what it used to be, right? Even just 10 or 20 years ago. So how much of this is affected by that, do you think?
Oh, yeah, I'd say a huge amount. And there's a lot of talk in Facebook communities now from teachers who are just exasperated by the fact that students seem to have very little understanding of how much effort it takes to get good at any one thing, and that they give up way too easily. And it's a difficult course to correct, and I'm not sure that we're able to. So we kind of have to go with the flow, in as much as we need to help students with small wins, quick wins, I call them, that give them milestones to work towards that only take maybe a few weeks, alongside some longer projects. Because students these days, and I'm sure adults, particularly young adults, probably more and more will find it harder to focus on a piece of music for a year or even 6 months, or a technique, you know, just plugging away at something, unless they are incredibly passionate and this is what they really want to do. That's also becoming harder and harder to find. So I think finding a balance between, let's have some quick wins, let's do some things that you want to do, but in the meantime, we're going to work on these bigger, longer term progressions. I think that's a balance that I'm finding and hearing is working.
One of the things that you say in your the description of your book here, it says, what would piano lessons be like if we didn't teach reading in lesson 1? That's kind of I like that. So then I guess the follow-up question to that then would be, well, then what do you teach on lesson 1?
Right.
You know,
that literally is why I wrote the book on it, because I know a lot of teachers would hear that and go, you know what, that kind of makes sense, i.e. not going straight into a method book. And most of us, age 30, 40 plus, will probably have been taught reading very early, if not first lesson, second lesson. And I think most teachers would probably, if you put to them that there are so much more musical things you can do, more fun things that will engage you with them, build rapport with them, listening skills, singing skills, movement, rhythm, improvising, creating, most of them would say, yes, that sounds great. I
Yeah.
should be doing that. But as you say, the next question is, but I have no idea what I'm doing. I was taught this way. I was taught with the method book. Tim, what on earth do you expect me to do? And that's literally why I wrote the book on it, and why I created a course which literally lays out lesson plans for 10 weeks, if you want to use them, of no book creative lessons. And a lot of our teachers will just use this approach maybe for 2 or 3 lessons, just to dive in and then start adding reading alongside continuing some of these creative ideas. Others will use the whole 10 weeks. And it's really flexible. And that was the whole point of this framework, but also all the frameworks I've ever created. I'm very conscious that teachers, myself included to some extent, don't necessarily like being told, you must do this. This is the only way to do something, particularly when I've been doing something for 20 or 30 years. But to say, here's something that can work alongside your current curriculum, your current approach. Why don't you try it out? I've found lots of teachers will give it a go, and then they're like, oh, these kids, I can't stop them. There's some feedback in the book, a testimonial from one teacher who said their parent was complaining that they couldn't stop their kid from playing so much of the same thing on the piano. It was almost incessant. It's like, we've never known them to play so much. This is the kind of thing that can happen though when you unlock a student, or you just allow them to be creative and imaginative and build curiosity. Super critical in today's world.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I love the idea of this no book beginners. So really, this is like a lesson curriculum or a pathway for teachers to teach students that are really at the very beginning. And what do you teach them at the very beginning?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's allowing that creative approach. So would you say then that student retention could be tied to the lesson experience having maybe some flexibility to it, as opposed to kind of that rigidity?
I think student retention, there are many levers that we can pull for student retention. I think obviously the lesson experience is one of those things. One other positive aspect of this no book approach, or a more just generally creative approach, or I call it an integrated approach, where you try and bring in theory, creativity, reading, everything into the lesson experience. One thing it does do is it helps students understand music at a deeper level. So rather than a student who can maybe play something that they've read really well, if they don't understand the chords, harmony, the rhythms, how it's been put together, the sections, all of those kinds of things, they only really have what I call a real surface, tip of the iceberg kind of level of understanding of music. If you can give them the rest of the iceberg, and I've got lots of frameworks around how teachers can do that by teaching students about chords, being more creative with them, unpacking things, making their own music, etc. It's all very doable. It's not that difficult. If you can do that, students have a greater understanding of music. They form connections better. So they might be listening to a piece of music. They might go, oh, that sounds a bit like that other thing that was on the radio, or that was on Spotify, or that I played, or that piece sounds like this. Oh, I wonder why. Oh, and you can pull apart in a lesson. Oh, let's look at the chords. Isn't that interesting? Well, all these pop songs have the same progression, or even Beethoven used this progression. Like all of these things, that is one way that we can improve the chances of a student sticking around. If we have this really deep, if they have a really deep understanding of music and they can form more connections. I think that, other levers we can pull definitely are things like milestones, just having set point. If you do go very off book and be very too flexible, then sometimes students can have no goal and they can't see points in the road where they're achieving something. And so I think keeping milestones are really important as well. That could be an exam. It could be recitals. I think recitals, like I don't even want to call them recitals, performance opportunities, good performance opportunities are second to none in the ability for studios to retain students as well, particularly if they're like, oh my gosh, that was so good. What's next year's theme? I can't wait for it. That's what we want, isn't it?
Well, it's true. Yeah. I found that, once we reached a certain size, it became less about how do we get more students and more about how do we keep the ones that we have, and minimize the, this whole thing that you're talking about, like keeping the students engaged is like, especially in today's world, like I think it's harder. I think it's harder to keep, like, retention is harder than it used to be,
Yeah, I would
or
agree.
maybe it's just simply we're focusing, like you said, or I love that just like maybe just focus on a different approach and be okay with the fact that the way you learned as a kid is probably not the way you should be teaching these kids right now, because they're living in a completely different world than we did.
We even have to educate parents in some ways in that regard, because they can sometimes undercut our ability to teach in a different way, because they think, oh, why isn't my student playing scales for 10 minutes every day? Or why aren't they doing exams? Or, uh, surely they should be counting out aloud in this, or whatever it is. And they seem to just be doing lots of singing and chanting, and they're making up music. What? Is this right? And we have to, in some ways, educate them as well as I'm helping teachers. Sometimes we as teachers have to remind the parents that actually, no, things are a little bit different, and we do take a different approach, and there's a lot of great outcomes that can come from it.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, especially for the younger kids, the kids that are 6, 7, 8 years old, because a lot of times they don't really have a whole lot to say,
Yeah.
and so in the lesson, and so usually it's mom or dad coming in with them, and um, and so yeah, that education piece is a big one. We used to have like a whole onboarding sequence for new students when they would come in. We would have, the staff would basically give them just like a folder with all this information. And then of course, nobody actually reads that. Right. And so then we would, we would email that to them in a sequence of emails over the course of time. And then the teacher would reiterate it. And then we had like a 30-day check-in. Like we just kept educating and educating and educating. It really did help, because when the difficult times came, we could kind of, reference back. Like we did mention that there would be some, bumps in the road, and that that's normal to like feel that frustration at 3 months or 6 months or something like that, because you're not just getting it right away. Although, we weren't following your no book beginners. Maybe we should have
I have
adjusted our approach.
There's another solution that I've presented to teachers on that front with regard to onboarding and emails. And it's like all parents get too many emails. It's so hard to keep up.
Yeah.
Another approach you can use, and I stole this from my chiropractor, is to present the parent in one of the first or second lesson, with an iPad and headphones and a video of you explaining this. Because the parents are often sitting there scrolling their phones.
Yeah.
Why don't we actually just record once and for all something that explains, why are we doing this? What are we passionate about? What's this studio about? Where are we getting their student? What do we expect? What is their role? Let's record a video and present that to them and let them watch it in that first lesson, so we know that they've got it. I think that's a real win if teachers aren't doing that already.
So how do you educate parents? It's like, everyone's different in this approach. I'm really curious your thoughts on this. So like, how some parents are kind of just absent the whole lesson experience. So it's like the drop off and then they're out of there, right? And then the kids on their own and whatever. But I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about like the opposite end of the extreme. Then you have the parent that's just, kind of the helicopter parent, I guess is what we would call them. But it's just like they want to know every little detail. They're like auditing every single lesson, and if their kid doesn't practice every day, then they feel like they're just wasting their money, and they just, and so how do you educate those parents?
You're like talking about how to like calm them down from the
because I mean, like,
from the
obviously I mean, most students are not going to practice every single day. You're doing well if you can get them to practice, a few days a week consistently. And so, but parents were like, man, then we're just wasting our money and blah, blah, blah. And so when you talk about educating, because you talked about the iPad, I love that idea. I think that's brilliant. Do you set expectations for the parents as to how much their kids should be practicing and all that?
100%. I think yeah, if we don't, then how are they to know that
Right.
we do? We kind of need to teach them. And I think it comes back to, if you are having issues with a parent on either end of the spectrum, just reminding them, why have they got their child enrolled, and reminding them that you, the teacher, is the most experienced person in regard to music education in this relationship between parent,
Yeah.
student, and teacher. And therefore, your knowledge, your guidance, all of your experience, your education, that's what you're putting into this lesson. And the question, of course, for parents ultimately is, do you want your child to have a love of music for a few years or for a very long time, hopefully their lifetime? Any parent will say, well, I want, well, I would say 99% of parents will say, I would love my child to love music for life, for as long as
Sure.
possible.
Yeah.
I want them to be engaged. Well, in that case, I'm the one that is making the recommendations about what you should do, what you need to do, etc., to get there. So, you don't need to force exams down their throat. Maybe that's not the best way to do it. And if a parent does want to do that, or they expect their child to practice an hour a day and they're 10 and the child is miserable, then and you can't get through to them, then maybe that's a student that needs to be handed over to someone else. And look, sadly, there will be teachers who will be more than happy to teach in that way.
Yeah, no, I think it's true.
And in Australia, in the UK, we get students who will do exams, and they'll do grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And as soon as they finish grade 8, it's like, hooray, I can quit piano now because I've finished. Yay, never have to play it again. It's just, I mean, we laugh, but isn't it sad? It's so sad.
Kind of missing the point, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely missing the point. But there are some parents out there who will do that in order to get the scholarship to the private school or whatever it is. And the poor kid. Yeah. So that's something that I have been wanting to change for the last 15 years. And I think it is changing, which is great.
How do you help, like, when you talk about the business side of it, right? Because I mean, obviously, this all connects, right? So if we can make our students happy, we can make our parents happy. They're going to stick in lessons longer, which makes the studio a little bit more profitable. But what would you say are some of like the most common business mistakes that you're noticing just from your perspective, working with all these piano teachers and music educators? Some of them that are trying to grow their studios. What are you finding some of the common missteps are?
I think relying on word of mouth, it's kind of how we always have done it. And it's like how we've always taught. We've always just relied on word of mouth. The reason, like, word of mouth is great. It's the best, obviously the best marketing, but it's completely unreliable. And sometimes it dries up, or you have to move to a new area, or something unexpected happens and word of mouth doesn't work anymore. And so I really think it pays for teachers to at least have a backup plan. And so even if they're full and they've got a waiting list, a small waiting list, let's say, you should be still marketing. There should be some marketing effort going on your part to remind people that you're there and to make sure that you're not forgotten, etc., just in case things change. And I think just that idea that we do have to be proactive in how we sell ourselves. And I guess that often comes back to, for a lot of teachers, just not having a website or having a terribly awful 1990s website. I don't see too many of them anymore, but I do still see a lot of websites which miss just crucial elements in that first page before anyone scrolls. Websites that talk too much about the teacher. No one really cares.
Yeah.
They want to know about their child. What's in it for them? What's in it for their child? How cool of a rock star or a classical musician, whatever your thing is, are you going to make their child? By the way, I think, David, this all comes back. A lot of the time I see online, people saying, "Oh, what do you think of this logo? Here's 3 options a designer made for me." And I'm like, that's not the right question. The question is, what is your studio about? What is the vision for your studio? And I think we often miss this. And my keynote to the 2024 Atlanta conference was all about vision, because it's so important. And a lot of teachers struggle because they don't have this vision and it's not shared. The parents of the students don't know. The students don't know. They don't know. So how on earth do they choose their fonts and logo and themes and what their studio feels like and looks like and things like that, you have to come from that. I know it sounds really grandiose and it's like, okay, but I'm not Elon Musk. We're not going to Mars. That's not my vision. But we do need to have visions for our studio, and that really dictates a lot of these other things that go on. I think I've taken a bit of a tangent, but hopefully that's helpful.
I think it's a really good point, because I think, the question is like common mistakes that you see business owners making. And I think that
that's a big one.
Marketing is essential. Like if you're wanting to grow. Now, if you just want to have a small studio and just have a few students, I mean, that's fine, I guess, to go word of mouth. But it is, like you say, it's unreliable in part because it's slower.
True.
And so I think one of the challenges that I think you have with a lot of music educators is that they're not business. Like, business is not why they got into teaching. They got into teaching because they love music, and most musicians are creatives. They're not, they don't want to be business owners. And so marketing is just kind of like, blah, And so, like, what do you say to somebody like that? How do you get somebody from that to like, okay, well, at least, you have to embrace some of these concepts if you want to have a few students consistently coming in.
Yeah, small steps, David. I think that's what it comes down to. Honestly, it was the whole reason that I put Top Music Pro, the membership site, together. And right from the start, we've always had, and you mentioned at the beginning, the two focuses, which is pedagogy, helping teachers teach effectively and creatively and differently, and business, helping them with the business. Because I found a lot of the time particularly when I was starting, which was 2010, I started blogging and recording videos about this. 2016 was when the membership started. Back then, there wasn't a lot of people talking about the business side of instrumental music teaching studios. And so it's no surprise teachers really struggle, because, as you say, most of us don't come from that background. And so to shift that mindset is for me to just talk about, there are simple things that you can do. We will help you. We'll guide you along the way. We have roadmaps and frameworks galore to help teachers with that. And you don't have to do everything at once. And as you said, if you're okay with having 5 students, and it doesn't really matter if you lose a couple and get a few more in a month's time, then that's fine. No problem at all. But there's a lot of teachers out there who need this for their income. And so that's where I really love stepping in and going, okay, well, let's check out, show me your website. What can I do to help there? How are you getting people to your website? Are you being found? Are you being found on Google? All of those things. There's a lot of simple steps that I think a lot of teachers just don't know about.
Well, and a lot of times you don't know what you want until you start going. Like,
well, you don't know what you don't know too.
Yeah, and you don't know. Yeah. But I mean, I remember we had, way back, we had 50 students, and I'm like, if I can just get to 100, I'll get everything, I'll be set. I'll be on the fast track and whatever. And then I get there and I'm like, yeah, but if I could get to 150, now that's where I really want to be, right? And then, it's like every step of the way, I'm thinking that's the top of the mountain. But reality is, you keep going, and so there is. So I heard a guy say one time that marketing creates stability in a business. Like, having a marketing plan and a strategy that you can implement will create a stabilizing flow and a good system for your business. I think that's really true. And so that's so interesting. So what would you say, as you said, things are changing in the teaching world, but would you also agree that things are changing in the music education space, like from the studio standpoint? Just because, like you mentioned, in 2010, there really weren't a lot of programs out there to educate music teachers and all of that. Now there's quite a bit more available, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say? Would you say that the landscape is changing? And if so, where do you think that it's headed?
Yeah, the education landscape is definitely changing. So we've got the changes in the education available for teachers, which has become quite enormous. and kind of overwhelming, I think, in a lot of ways. When I started my podcast in 2015, there was maybe 2 other podcasts, maybe. And now just for piano teachers, there's probably 30, I'd guess.
Wow.
Or more. And the same for courses, online courses and things like that.
Yeah.
So what the challenge that's brought up is that now there's overwhelm and there's so much stuff out there. And then we throw in AI into the mix, and I think one of the big shifts in online education more generally is for people to wonder whether ChatGPT can teach them something as well as they could learn on a course of some sort. And so, as course providers as well, we're looking at this changing landscape and thinking, okay, well, how is AI being implemented? Is it something that we can use to enhance what we teach people? Is it going to take away what we're doing? There's lots of questions, and I know schools are battling with this at the moment. How do you assess people when it can all come from ChatGPT, etc.? So there's a lot of flux going on in that side. So the music learning is definitely a shifting landscape. One thing that has definitely changed in the last 10, 15 years is that teachers have become, particularly piano teachers, become more open to being flexible, being creative, doing things differently. Really, when I started, I really felt like I was pushing a rock up a very steep hill in just getting people to think that there's another way and it's okay. A lot of the time, I'm almost giving teachers permission that what they're doing is actually okay. Some of them, and I totally understand this from a classical background myself, you feel really shackled and constrained that really there is only one way, and it's through classical music. So just letting people know that, no, yes, what you're doing is great, and look at the results you're having, that shift has really taken root in the last 10 years. And we've seen that in conferences. So when I first spoke at a conference in 2013, I talked about pop music, and it was, I don't even know how I was allowed there. This was my first conference in America. I'd only been doing things online for 3 years or something, and they let this wacko young Aussie guy in to speak at your posh conference. And I was one of the only ones talking on anything creative at that conference. Now there's whole streams of it. There's days of it. And that is so good. That was something that I really wanted to come out of the work that I'm doing. And I know I'm not the only one. There are many, many people pushing this and supporting teachers, and it's having a great impact. So that's been a really positive change.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've obviously been at you really were the pioneer for a lot of these ideas that are now becoming a little bit more mainstream, I guess, or common. But
well, one of them. There was a core of us. I wouldn't say I was the only one.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think it is good that all of that there is more available to everybody, and there's more education out there. But you hit it just a second ago. I think it's very interesting that there is this idea of overwhelm.
Yeah.
Right. Like, just because all the information is out there doesn't mean everybody knows it. Right.
Yeah.
And so there becomes the challenge of like, okay, how do we organize this information in such a way where people actually will consume it and they will be able to act upon it and make changes based on it? I personally think that we're going over the next 5 years or so, like the information, like we're just at the tip of the iceberg with AI. I think there's just like pretty much anything that you could ever want to know is just going to be a couple clicks away. And so to me, the desire and the need for in-person events and people actually getting together and collaborating with one another where they're not interacting with a screen.
Yep.
I think that is actually where there's going to be a tremendous demand for that. Because again, it's like the information's already out there. Everyone has access to pretty much anything they would ever want to know.
Yeah, I think, I'm really glad you said that, because we are having our 10th birthday for Top Music Pro in March next year.
Awesome.
And I'm planning a live event. So the last time I did a live event was January 2020. And everyone, all the members have been like, "Oh, when are you doing your next event? It was so good, etc." And I kept putting it off, but I think the time's right. So I'm glad that you said that, because that makes me think, ooh, I think I might be going down the right path.
Where is it going to be?
Sydney, I think, Australia.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing I'll pick up on that, with access to all the knowledge, there's two things that we're really thinking about for teachers. One is pathways, and showing people a pathway through all the knowledge that's out there, and implementation. I think that's the other missing piece.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you can access this course, but are you going to actually implement it? Are you going to change anything in your teaching as a result of it? How can I help? How can AI help you? What can we do to fix that step? That's something that I'm thinking about as a course creator all the time as well. And whether and how AI might help in that, I'm not too sure. But we're at the cusp, as you say, of thinking about it and learning what could that look like.
Yeah, it's like, how do you get somebody to actually act on the information that you're giving them? How do you hold them? Yeah, it's like, I mean, that's kind of at the crux of it, right? Like, the information is useless if it's not acted upon.
Yes.
And so really this becomes more of a question of getting people to implement these ideas, knowing that if they do, then they'll be successful. Everybody loves to hear a great idea, like the 5 secrets to, having the happiest life you've ever wanted, right?
Yep.
But then it's like, but nobody actually does it. Like they hear about the 5 secrets and then they don't actually go and do it. So how do you get them to actually implement?
Yeah, it's I don't know the answer. I'm kind of working on the answer at the moment, but that it's about breaking habits as well. Because even conferences, even live events, you go to a conference, wow, massive buzz, so cool, right, all these ideas, and then you go back to your studio, and it's just easier doing it the way you've always done it. One thing we did test recently, which was really well received, was a sprint. We called it our back pocket sprint, which is a weird name, but the idea is that we would give teachers these ideas that they could pull out of their back pocket when students come into lessons upset, dysregulated, sad, haven't done any practice, have no books, those kind of things, rather than whatever else you might do. It's like, oh no, I've got the solution for this. Let's do this activity. So giving them over 30 days these short little ideas. And so what I did is broke it up into 5 days of little tasks. And the feedback was, and I would send them by email saying, okay, watch this quick video. It's like 3 minutes and go and do that thing today. Go. And teachers really found that helpful. They said they look forward to those emails because they knew it would 10 minutes, they could do something, learn something, and implement it pretty quickly. So that's one idea that we've tested, and I think we're likely to do more of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's the way a lot of people learn, right? Is by taking smaller steps instead of trying to get all the way to the top, right?
Yeah.
Up the staircase, and just taking one step at a time. And so giving people chunks, I think that is, and that's really, I think, good just in general for, your own personal life. When you think about, like, as you're progressing, not trying to, what is that whole thing? How do you eat an elephant? Just one bite at a time or something. Yeah. And so kind of capitalizing on that. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Being a content creator, you obviously have to contend with the AI revolution that we're in right now. And the fact that the information is pretty much all out there. It's just a one prompt away.
Yeah, that's right.
So
one thing it still can't do, which is good, is show teaching in action. And so that's why YouTube is still valuable, the videos we create, etc. But, you could say, how should I teach my first beginner piano lesson? It could talk you through it, but there is nothing like seeing a teacher teach. And we've got a lot of videos in our membership just so teachers can be a fly on the wall. It's the best way to learn. I remember I'm a trained classroom teacher as well, and I did teaching rounds. Having someone watch your teaching and critique it, it's awful, but it's the best way to learn. So we encourage teachers to do that as well, even if they don't give it to someone else, just to watch back your own teaching. So valuable. But I think, yeah, being a fly on the wall, seeing teaching in action is one of the best ways to learn. And thankfully, ChatGPT can't do that yet.
That's right.
Yet.
Yet. Yeah. We'll just put that at the end of that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what would you say? So you've got this amazing membership program, which music schools should definitely check out. Um, what are some of the most successful members in your organization? Like what are they doing? What are some of the habits you're seeing that they exhibit, taking from your program and really being successful?
Well, great question. I just recently interviewed a recent grad from one of our programs. So we have a high level program called the 12-week studio transformation. And
Oh,
this teacher who I was chatting with, she'd really, I mean, she'd grown her studio numbers and hired 2 teachers as well to teach more students because she couldn't teach them all, which was super cool. So I think and sorry, and I was just going to say it, but her own teaching had just solidified, cemented, developed, expanded. But she suddenly had this confidence, and she had a spark back. She really said, "Oh," even my husband said, "Oh, you looks like you're enjoying this again." And she's like, "Yes, I am. This is so good. I love it." Um, one one of the things. Oh, look, there's lots of elements to the answer to your question, I think, but I think having systems and using software to remove the admin burden is still a missing piece for so many teachers. And it
mm,
is something that all good teachers and the successful ones in our membership all do. If you are still writing invoices, collecting checks for good, oh my God, it bamboozles me that
mm-hmm,
teachers in this day and age would still be doing that. There is software to help you. And that software will also help you schedule and allow people to reschedule. It will make your life so much easier. And I know, David, people are thinking, yes, but I'm going to pay $3 per student or whatever for that a month. And it's like, yeah, that's okay. That's a cost of doing business. But what's the opportunity cost of you spending that time, an hour, even if it's an hour a week, doing this mundane admin that you don't have to be doing? Well, it's time that you're lost with your family. It's time that you've lost planning lessons or teaching more students or whatever it is. So I think, one of the biggest things we see successful teachers doing is having systems in place for things like attracting new students, onboarding them. So when they click that button on the website that says book your free trial or have your first lesson or whatever it is, that there is a process, there's a calendar link that gets sent to them, and a couple of follow-up emails, etc. So there's a system there. So system for onboarding. There's processes around payments and that admin so that you just don't have to worry about it. So then you get the brain space to focus on the teaching, which of course is the most important point. Comes right back to when we talked about retention at the start. If your teaching doesn't connect with students, doesn't have some student focus, you're ground into the dust by burdens and you're miserable and burnt out, your students aren't going to hang around. And so let's
yeah.
fix that. Let's get you some time back. Get those systems, get some software in place to help. That's honestly one of the biggest and simplest things teachers can do.
Yeah, I think what makes it so difficult is when you've done something the same way for so many years, the idea of having a software do so much of that work, it almost seems too good to be true. But also, I think it that like the release of control. Like if I
Yeah.
don't actually get the physical check, then how do I know it's actually coming in?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that I would imagine that's one of the challenges. But no, I couldn't agree more, man. Systems, that is how you scale, that's how you grow.
Hmm.
And so, for sure. Well, your book, No Book Beginner, I mean, I think for any piano teacher, this is a must read for sure. So definitely check this out. It's on Amazon. I'm actually looking at it right now on Amazon. So Notebook Beginners looks fantastic. What if somebody wants to join your membership? How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, and I'll just say on the book as well. If you so it's on Amazon, you can get a digital copy if you'd prefer, and you want it like instantly. There's an audiobook version, but one of the things you'll get a chance to do with the book is log into a website which has videos of me teaching these lessons, the lesson plans themselves, the backing tracks for the improvisations that you're going to do with students. Like everything is laid out step by step. So please, if you're a studio owner and you have piano teachers and maybe you think they could do things differently, please refer them to this book. Please buy the book and give it to them. That's probably an even better thing. I mean, for the investment for you, you're going to see changes in your teachers. So I really recommend that. If you're interested in the membership, I'd love to offer you guys, any listeners, a free, actually, I think we've got a $1 trial. So pay $1, get 14 days, explore the whole site. If you want to do that, topmusic.co slash free dash trial. I'll say it again, topmusic.co slash free dash trial, free trial. And that will get you, in for $1, explore it, check it out, see what you think. And for studio owners as well, if you're interested, we do have a multi-teacher membership, so that you can purchase a membership that and then assign it to multiple teachers in your studio.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Tim, thank you so much for being on here. It's always a pleasure, and just keep at it, man. You're killing it.
Thanks, mate. It's so good to connect with you. I really enjoyed it. So thanks for having me on your show.